Welcome, Jessica Simmons. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good, good. Just wanted to chat a little bit about your practice and how you decided to focus on um, the divorce area of financial advising. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I started in the financial industry about 13 years ago. And prior to that, I had actually been a counselor. My master's degree is in school counseling. So I had worked with a younger population for about 6 years. And then I made a big move across country, found a job working in a financial practice, and really fell in love with financial planning as sort of an offset of counseling. I just thought they married really well together. It's all about behavior modification and goal setting, and
Absolutely.
that just spoke to me. Yeah. I did about 5 years ago, I think, I had a mentor say to me, I just finished this certification for divorce financial planning, and I think it's something that you should look into. She said, even if you don't do the work, you're always going to have clients that at some point somebody will be going through it, and at least the knowledge alone is helpful
Right,
when
right.
helping clients through transition. But I did the designation, and then I did sort of a coaching program, and just really threw myself into doing the work, because as a certified divorce financial analyst, I can work with clients in a lot of different ways to help them through what really is one of the most challenging times of their lives. I love doing financial planning when it's all retirement and saving for college and all the fun stuff, but it's really when people are facing adversity that I think what we do is the most powerful. So,
It's
um,
powerful, and don't you
so I
think it's
got yeah,
so rewarding to help somebody?
yeah, absolutely. And I had a client last year who was starting, when we started together, there were tears of sadness and anger and grief. And at the end of it, there were tears of happiness. And that transition, that transformation was just, I mean, it changed both of our lives. So, I love that about what we do, and there are kids involved too. So, I know that what we were able to do helps make her life better, but also the lives of her kids too. Um, and and that also kind of ties back in with what I used to do. Is
Right,
I
right.
know divorce
Absolutely.
is yeah, and to help them be able to get through it in a way where their parents still respect each other and can communicate for the kids' best interests is important too. So after getting my CDFA credential, I got additional training in collaborative divorce and also mediation. So I can work with clients in a lot of different ways. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's a one-on-one relationship, but sometimes it's both spouses, and being more of a neutral party to help them make the most important decisions are the money and the kids.
Right.
So if I can help through the money part of it and get them to a place where they both feel like, okay, we can live with this and move forward. That's, yeah, it's just, it can be tough. They're really difficult conversations, but in the end, they have to happen, and having an objective third party can be really helpful for both people.
Right, right. And don't you find that oftentimes there is one of the parties that does all the bills and understands all the financials, and there's often one that just you can't sit down every month and do all the bills. That's, not realistic. I mean, and so you find that sometimes there's people that just have no idea what their finances are. So if you or I are able to help them gain that knowledge and the education of where they need to be, what they need to do for not just now, but the future. So it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very uncommon for both spouses to be equally involved in the financial
Right.
management of the household, even in the healthiest of relationships. One person is usually the financial officer of the
Right,
household,
right, right,
and some do better than others about bringing the other one into at least knowing what's going on. But um, that, and when I do work as a financial planner with spouses, I'm always trying to get people on the same page about their money. So to really, in the long run, if I can help save a marriage because they're on the same
right,
page with their goals, like that's great. But
right.
if we have to unwind it, have bringing empowerment to the non-CFO spouse is so important, not only for their future, but even to help them make decisions
Right,
through
right.
the divorce process itself. I mean, uh, lack of knowledge can really paralyze someone.
Can I ask you a question about financial abuse? And do you see forms of financial abuse in the couples that you're, or the individuals you're working with ever?
I think there can be varying degrees of
Right.
financial abuse. I've not had a case where it's been incredibly pronounced to the point where I would consider it domestic abuse.
Hmm.
Um, I think you always have to be looking out for that, especially I think what you'll see the most is a coercive nature of a relationship where one person is trying to sort of lord the financial knowledge that they have over the other person to help get what they want.
Hmm.
And that can be very common, especially if one spouse is a narcissist.
Right.
But
It's a
even
way to
just
control the other
that
person.
keeping, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's to keep them in a marriage that isn't healthy.
Mhm.
um that fear, like I said, that paralyzing fear of, I don't know what we have, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. It can keep you stuck in somewhere that isn't good for you,
Right,
or your
right,
kids if there are some. So yeah, and so as a financial neutral, and when I work with attorneys, it's something we have to be really mindful of, that can happen. And trying to help work with that spouse who is feeling like they're being abused financially, to help give them the tools that they need to be successful moving forward. So we can even start with just, let's run your credit report and go into this eyes wide open of knowing, has this person been opening accounts in your name that you didn't even know about? I mean,
right,
most
right.
spouses have social security numbers, birthdays, credit, like
Sure,
enough
they know
to
all the
open
important
whatever credit
information.
card.
Mhm, mhm.
And so if you go through a credit report, you can really see, is there anything that I don't even know about? And then you can, once you have that basic knowledge, then you can take steps to move forward
Right,
in
right.
clearing some of that stuff out.
Well, like you said, it's educating people. It's, you know, let's look at the whole picture. So many times they don't see, if one spouse just gives them, in a sense, an allowance, or, you know, they
Right.
often don't have any idea. So, um,
Yeah.
was it-
Well, and that can also be like, well, I can't leave because I don't even have the money to hire a lawyer,
right, right,
and how do you help people work through that? And being able to help them, I think they might not even know about how, I don't know how to pay my electric bill.
right.
It can be as basic as that. And to be able to walk somebody and hold their hand through that is, yeah, it's incredibly important.
It is important. When you work with attorneys, when you partner with attorneys, do you find most times you're working with a collaborative, non-litigious attorney, or collaborative, or both? What do you find is most common when you partner?
I've really done a fairly even amount of both. And even so, through the collaborative divorce process, that's a great relationship with the attorneys because you're really talking to both of them. I mean, that's truly the most effective way to do it, because I've also had more litigious and not necessarily contentious, but just going through court, going through that process where I talk to the lawyer and then the lawyer has to talk to the other lawyer, and it's just very inefficient. To have the conversation that way, it can really drag things out a lot longer than it needs to be. And I've had times when spouses are going just through basic mediation where I've worked with the person doing the mediation too. And that can also be really effective, because that one person is working with both spouses. So
Right,
the
right.
least efficient way is really have lawyer, everybody working in a silo. That that can be tough.
Yeah.
Doable, but
It sometimes gets
what
to
I
be like
really
that game of telephone where sometimes things get lost in the translation or just skewed a little bit. So when you do the collaborative, everybody's working together.
Yeah, and you're literally having the conversation together. So it's not even like, okay, go ask your lawyer this. It's, hey, I'm going to ask you this because I'm
Right,
sitting here in the room with you.
right, right.
So, sometimes people I think are like, oh, well, I have to pay a lawyer and I have to pay you and I have to pay a therapist. But sometimes it's really the quickest way to get it done and can be more cost
Well, and
effective
it's so
because it's so
important to have a financial advisor on your team because, like you
totally.
said, there are three things that are critical: the children, if there are children, money, and the house. And,
Yeah.
you can fight over support, but you also have the other arenas of money to consider. So, yeah,
And I always consider it's funny because in your world, the house is a separate entity, but in my world, it's all so tied in with the finances
right,
because
right,
if one person wants to keep the house, but they don't have the income or the assets to pay the mortgage, we got to have a very realistic conversation about
right,
that. Um, and and sometimes we can structure it in a way where it's like, well, you don't have the income necessarily to pay the mortgage, but there are these other assets that if you structure it in such a way that you
exactly.
could
How do we structure it
take
so
some
that
money.
we get the best result possible?
And it's not always that 50-50 split of things.
Right,
It doesn't
right,
have to be that, because sometimes it doesn't work for what people want to do.
right, right.
And that's where I think, like, I'm a big puzzle person.
Me too, me
So
too.
yeah. So it's putting those pieces together in a way that maybe doesn't look like the picture that you thought you were starting off with. It turned
Right,
into something
right,
different,
right.
but that works better for both of you.
And that's the end result is what we want, to make the best possible for everyone. So,
Totally. Yeah. And when you're talking about litigated divorces, those are, if they're really contentious, those are always hard for me to be as involved in because I don't I I don't want that to be the reality of divorce for people. I
right,
know that it is sometimes, and especially when we're talking about financial abuse, sometimes it's going to just end up in court. And that can be okay. But the more we can shift to this mutual respect and just trying to get through the process in a way that doesn't tear the family apart
right,
forever,
right.
I would much rather work in a relationship like that with someone.
Well, because even if there are not children involved, there are still two families involved. And, depending on how long the marriage is
Absolutely.
gone, they're a part of each other. So, yeah, if we can
And
hold,
friend groups,
yes,
professional
yes,
groups. I mean, things lives get very intertwined very
right,
quickly.
right. Anything else you want to share with our audience, Jessica?
I I think I would just say if somebody's watching this and they do feel like there's been whatever level of financial abuse in their relationship, whether it's just as basic as withholding of knowledge or if it truly is like this person is holding me captive with our money, I would just encourage people to reach out to someone like myself or even like you who can point them to resources to help them get through that
Right,
time.
right,
You never have to be stuck in something that isn't good for you. Um, and yeah, and there's always at the end of the day there's always hope and there's always a brighter future.
right,
You just have
right.
to wade through the storm to get there and you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely. You don't have to do it alone, and there's a team out there to work with you. If
Yeah,
somebody wanted to connect with you, what's the best way? And if you can give us some of your contact information.
absolutely. So I have my divorce practice is called Blackbird Divorce Solutions. Blackbird comes from the Beatles song. Blackbird. It's
I
all
love
about
it.
taking your broken wings and learning to fly. And so my website is actually rolling out soon. And then my email address is jessica@blackbirddivorce.com.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I will chat with you again soon. We'll have
All
another
right.
one, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.